So, hi guys. Uh, I hope all of you are doing good, going great with sociology, answer writing, studying, understanding, thinking sociologically. So, today we are here with day 3 of answer writing, and I'll be discussing the model answers with you. So, without delay, I'll quickly share my screen. Yeah, I think my screen is visible to you. So, uh, we'll start with the first question. See, the first question that was given to you was, is non-positivist methodology scientific? So here I have given you a basic structure, how you have to go about, what should be your introduction, body, and conclusion as we go about with every question. And then we'll see how non-positivism is different from positivism and why it is scientific, if at all it is scientific, or why it is not scientific. And we'll try to come to a well rounded up conclusion, right? So in the introduction, now first of all, what is positivism and what is non-positivism? So all those who are starting their preparation for the first time, they might not be very well versed with these ideas, but these things form the basics of sociology. Like, why do you think that suddenly a subject like sociology, why society, we have society all around us, everything, like man is a social animal, why is it that suddenly you have to study society? The answer lies in what we studied in the first day, that there was enlightenment and suddenly ideas of rationality, modernity, it was coming up. It was also triggered by other factors like mercantilism, etc. So um, all this led to the scientific study. So it felt that if we can measure um, the pressure, if we can measure temperature, then why can't we measure the rate of suicide? Why can't we, if we know that, if say because of heredity, we see certain factors that are there in genetic diseases, are a lot of it is contributed to our hereditary genes. So why is it that we cannot study the rate of suicide, or for that matter study anything else? So from here emerged that we have to study society scientifically, and the father of this body of thought is Auguste Comte, and followed by Durkheim. So here we are deviating from positivist. Now, once the positivist approach started, now before that, before the 17th century, 18th century, we were just studying society, not like a science, not collecting data based on statistics and all that. Now, once we started studying society like that, what emerged was a critique of the way we study society, or of the scientific study, like a critique of positivism. And this was non-positivism. So non-positivism was, the non-positivist said that no, we cannot study society just the way we study other disciplines. So like other scientific disciplines, it has to be a tad bit different. And how is it different? uh, so the non-positivist methodology developed as an alternative to positivism. So it was just an alternative idea, an alternative body of knowledge. So they said, so they felt that it differed from positivism. It said that what positivists thought, that society is given to us and there are certain rules and regulations that society imposes on us. Like whenever the Hindus, whenever we go, the society has told us that we have to join our hands in front of the god or the goddesses. Or if you are the citizen of a nation, you have to abide by certain principles. Or if you are in a social institution called marriage, you have to maintain uh, certain tenets. So we function in that ambit. So society is larger than man. But what non-positivists said, that no, it's not totally external. It's not at all totally external to man. In fact, uh, they try to define it as the meaning one attaches to it. So how we define society, how we uh, understand social reality, it is not something that is given to us. If something is given to us externally, then all of us will have same meaning. But in society, different people have different meanings. It's not that everyone is having the same meaning. Everyone is trying to put the same meaning to sociology, right? So different people are putting different meanings, and uh, it's just like the kind of meaning we try to impart to sociology, that defines what it is to the different social phenomena. For example, religion, for some maybe a kind of your transmigration of the soul, or kind of escaping into leaving your physical self, leaving behind the sorrows. For someone, it might be a tool of exploitation. For someone else, it might be celebration. So religion cannot have, just like religion is a social phenomena, or it's an institution, so it cannot have the same meaning to everybody. So the kind of meaning we attach to it, that defines what it is. So it is definitely very subjective. My interpretation of religion and your interpretation of religion is not the same. It would not be the same. So here the non-positivists differed from the positivist. So here, whenever you're writing an answer, don't just haphazardly write the points. We all know what are the points, that they believed in scientific methods. Non-positivists believed in non-scientific methods. Positivists wanted to uh, positivists wanted to um, uh, just a minute. Positivists wanted to give a scientific approach. They wanted to study like the natural sciences. They used hypothesis, all these things, forming of hypothesis, etc. Non-positivists were more subjective in their approach. So we all know all these things. This is not something new. But what the examiner will be bored to see the same points. So how can you make your answer different? Is you have to make subheadings, and that would be your dimensions. So on what dimensions they differed, that would be uh, your point. So the first thing is underlying belief. So people like George Hegel said that social phenomena are the result of ideas which are generated in the minds of individuals, and ideas are responsible. Similarly, Mead said that social research cannot be fully objective, but positivists focused on objectivity. So underlying belief is very different between the two methods. Goal of research, they want to find the subjective meaning. For example, Mead, in her study of sexual habit among tribes of New Guinea, she found that sexual behavior is not entirely biologically controlled. It is something which is uh, very something that is imposed by society. So whether the woman will be very reticent and the man will be aggressive, or both will be aggressive, or both will be very constricted, or whether the man will go and propose first or the woman will go and propose first, chivalry and all these attributes, it is not something that is innate in the biological character of man. It is something that has society has imposed. We have taught our men that uh, you have to open the door of the car, so that is for the woman. So that is why uh, it has been so it's not like something his biological nature has dictated him. So it's something that is imposed by society. Next is methodology. So here we have methods like symbolic interactionism of Weber, George Shultz's phenomenology, Garfinkel's ethnomethodology. They are alternative methods to functionalism. So these are the keywords. You have to write phenomenology, epistemology, ethnomethodology, symbolic interactionism. So these are keywords. You will not get good marks until and unless you quote these keywords, or quote. You might understand what positivism and non-positivism is, but without these keywords, you are not going to fetch good marks. If Weber is symbolic interactionism, you have to write Weber's symbolic interactionism. You cannot make up this word. If you don't remember, don't remember. Big deal, doesn't matter. But you have to uh, use that particular word. If Weber is symbolic interaction, you cannot say just like that non-positivist method and beat about the bush. Lots of students do that, and that is where they lose marks. They might have understood, but they don't remember the keywords. So better is to make a list of keywords. Next is method of study, participant observation, construction of ideal types, sample surveys, etc. And lastly, you have knowledge generated. Uh, it gives a very contextual knowledge, something that is not as fixed as, you know, that temperature, Charles law and Boyle's law will always hold true. Exceptions rarely, like science is like universally true, but social sciences, it's not universal. The knowledge, it is not universal in character. It is very contextual. In India it might be something, in some other state or some other country or some other people it might be different. So a widely cited difficulty here, you have to write about the criticism, is that lack of an accepted means of objectively validating findings that is convincing to the scientists. So universality is not there. So, one might have one view, another might have another view. So that is one problem with non-positivist methods. And so now hybrid methods like Michael Mann's social logic or triangulation by Norman Denzin, you have to write about these. So these are hybrid methods, which is making a combination of positivist and non-positivist methodology. And in the conclusion, you can write scholars like Dilthey and Rickert. If you quote the names of scholars, definitely you're going to get good marks. But if you don't remember even writing what the substance, like what they exactly said, you don't remember the name, but you know, like the substance of the theory or whatever they have more or less tried to say, even that is fine, because it is not possible to remember the names of so many thinkers. But your Durkheim, Marx, Weber, Martin, Parsons, Martin, Mead, your Srinivas and Gure, all these things should be on your fingertips. You cannot give, free hand to yourself in these things. These have to be on your fingertips. So where it holds relevance will be the conclusion. Like it can, you can end in some other way also. This is just a model answer. So it exposed unexplored areas where positivism cannot venture. Something that is very subjective. When you're going and studying the tribes, so different people will have different interpretations. For example, I think 2-3 years back, Quint had made they had done a sociological analysis. So basically, they were doing participant observation method. So they were studying the rape culture in different states in India. If you see, you can see the documentary in on YouTube. It's by the Quint, and they are basically trying to analyze people's viewpoint. What do they feel about rape? Some say that okay, women are at fault. Some say no, it's the societal bias, patriarchal nature, and all these things. So it's called Inside India's Rape Culture. So that is participant observation. It is very subjective. It is not, they cannot come to one particular conclusion. So it's very subjective. It depends on the way you look at it. Again, the next question is critically examine positivist methods. Critical examination of something definitely means that you have to say the good and the bad parts. You know the good parts of positivism, that it is very universally acceptable. It is scientific. It relies on, you have to again follow the same structure, use of methods and all these. In the criticism, you have to write that it fails on objectivity parameters. Basically, the positives of non-positivism will be the negatives of positivism. That's how you have to go about. Now, you might be thinking why I gave this question. It's very close. It's close, but I'm just teaching you how to approach. Critically examine positivist methods. When you're trying to write critically examine, you have to write the good and the bad. You have to be a critic. Say in you have the Critics' Choice Award. So what do they say? That why would they give an award? Criticism does not mean only negatives. You have to write the positive. Positive is, of course, it is very universal. It is scientific. It started due to positivism. We had the scientific study of society. But on the flip side of it, you have that not everything is quantifiable. It relies on a deductive approach, but instead we need an inductive approach. And you have to write criticisms like there are other methods like Weberian ideal types, through which Weber has showed that you cannot apply your positivism everywhere. In that case, you have to, for example, in the study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, uh, uh, capitalism was the cause of religion was the cause of capitalism. That was true in one society. that Weber said, but in other cases it was not true. Weber constructs ideal tribes, for example, bureaucracy, and then he tries to consider the others from deviations, how they have deviated from the ideal system. So that is how the non-positivists are approaching. So the kind of meanings we attach to our through our interactions, that is the basic element of non-positivism. And so positivists overemphasize a universalism. For example, Durkheim spoke of suicide as if there are only 4 kinds of suicides, and it is entirely societal driven. What about the there are aberrations, there are deviations, and he did not capture it. And Habermas criticized positivism for losses sight of the actors, reducing them to passive entities. So whatever the society will say to us, the actor will act accordingly. So if religion is imposing a kind of regulation, it will be the same kind of regulation on everybody. If that is the case, then we would not have people who are atheists. For them, religion cannot impose regulation, or you cannot have deviations in the name of religion, because that is not regulation. So this is how you have to approach. So basically, for critical analysis, you have to write what positivism is, what are the merits, what are the demerits of positivism, some relevant studies of positivism, and a conclusion like how it is relevant. So this is how you have to approach, since it's not a very big question, only 150 words question. So I think it will be short. You just have to hit the key points and you have to write the keywords. So that's how you have to approach these 2 questions. And I hope it's clear to you. I think all of you should really start writing. Instead of these lectures will hold true only when you start writing. So it will hold any value. Only listening to these lectures is not enough. Start writing, get it evaluated, and that will build the confidence. It doesn't matter whether it's structured or not. No one can reach perfection. In fact, there is nothing called perfection, because it is again very subjective. So I think it's high time that you start writing, get it evaluated, and that will give you the confidence. No matter how bad you feel that you are at sociology, if that is your optional, just pick up the pen and paper and just start writing, and that's all. That will solve everything. And slowly start analyzing, start understanding perspectives, and then that will be done. Use examples. When you read the paper, try relating it to the sociological. There are various news that comes up. Try analyzing it from a sociological perspective. Clear? So thank you, everybody, and good luck, guys. Bye. I'll see you in the next session.